Hey man, welcome to the podcast. That's right. You know what this is, Cindy? This is called Steel Horse Thunder and Beyond. And Beyond. That's right. We talk a little bit about everything on here. Like for instance, right now, I'm smoking the Camacho Nicaragua. Okay? The Camacho Nicaragua cigar. It's a little misleading, only because it's a, what is it? It's a Habano wrapper, Honduras binder, and then the fillers are Nicaraguan, Honduran, and Dominican Republic. So I'm assuming the other Camachos that aren't called the Nicaragua, apparently they don't have any Nicaragua in them, because there's very little bit of Nicaragua in this. So I know you guys always expect me to say something about my cigar I'm smoking. First time I've ever had one of these. And in all honesty, it's not really the right time to do a review if I haven't ever smoked one, because I'm not going to be paying much attention to the cigar at all right now, because we're going to be talking.
Yeah.
All right, as you know, I'm your host, Scott Schnizzler. Well, with me tonight, I actually have the co-host of Steel Horse Thunder. See, here's the thing. When I started working on Steel Horse, it was Steve Reeves, Steel Horse, and I worked with him his last season. He explained to everybody who I was. Then our first season, I did it by myself at first, and we had Mark Ladendorf of Ladendorf Law. He was the one that did interviews with me so that people could get to know who I was. Halfway through the season, Alicia Burkhart came on board, and she helped us out, helped us finish out that first season that we did. Obviously, it was supposed to be you and I. You were not in a place to be able to help at that time. You just couldn't do it. And quite frankly, it really wasn't your thing, even though that's the whole reason why Steve wanted you and I to take the show over, because he wanted it to be the two of us. But you were going through a lot at the time. And so then, long story short, season 2, you came on board full time. You helped out a bunch during the first season. But season 2, full time, you and I. Now we're getting ready to start season 12. So this is Cindy, the co-host of Steel Horse Thunder.
Hi.
All right, Cindy, we're gonna do a little thing here. We're gonna act like we don't know each other, okay?
Okay. How's your cigar?
Well, I'm tasting it here. It's got a little spice. It's got some spice. It's more of a rugged cigar. It's not going to be sweet. If you like sweet cigars, this probably isn't going to be it for you. I'll see what it's like once I get smoking it a little bit. But so Cindy, my first question I ask every person that comes on here: what do you ride?
I ride a Dyna Street Bob. It's a 2008.
2008 Harley Davidson Dyna Street Bob. The Street Bobs are now soft tails, all right? So they are all soft tails right now. When you bought yours back in 08, it was part of the Dyna series, which is no longer part of the Harley Davidson repertoire, which is a shame. I love the Dynas. The Dynas were one of my absolute favorite of all the Harleys. I hated to see them go, but I get it. Nothing stays the same. So how long you been riding?
I have been riding since 2000, so that makes it 24 years.
Wow. Wow. 24 years. 24 years of riding. And then I have to ask, what made you start riding? And I'm not going to be mean right now, but it's not like you started riding when you were 20 years old.
Right.
Okay? You were later on in life before you said, you know what, I want to start riding a motorcycle. How?
Well, because we have children, and if we wanted to be able to take those children, I needed to ride. We went on a ride. It was just you and I. We went out to Hannibal, Missouri, and we couldn't take the kids because I wasn't riding. I had to be on the back of your bike. And during that trip, I decided that if I rode, we could take the kids with us. And I thought that that would be great, because that way we wouldn't have to leave them at home, and they could be able to enjoy, the time on the bike with us.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. And here's the best idea we had. You know what? You said, will you teach me how to ride a motorcycle?
Mm-hmm.
I said, I will not, but I know who will. Mm-hmm. And you went through the ABATE
I did.
safety course. They taught you how to ride. They taught you all the good things without all of my horrible bad habits.
Exactly.
And was that not the way to go? What was your thoughts on the safety course through ABATE? And I know there's a lot of other ones out there now. You know, Harley Davidson's have. I know Southside Harley Davidson up in Indianapolis. They have their own facility where they do it. And there's a lot of other ones out there. But I know you went through ABATE.
I did.
Kids went through ABATE.
I thought ABATE was great because they teach you from the ground up. They don't put you on the bike until they go over everything that's on the bike, and then you go out, you get on, you actually don't even, you have to walk beside it. Did I walk beside it? I think I did. And we had to walk it across the parking lot, and then you had to do all the safety things before you even did that. So I thought it was awesome. I mean, it was the 3-day course, so I went Friday night, Saturday and Sunday, and the funny thing about that was that I dropped my bike during the course.
You dropped their bike.
I dropped their bike. I didn't drop mine, but not saying I haven't. But I dropped the bike in the 90-degree turn, and I messed up my shoulder. I messed up my leg, and I still got back on the bike and said, I'm going to do this. I did not want to stop. And by Sunday, I was so sad because I didn't have a bike yet, and I wasn't going to be able to ride. And so that part was a bummer, but the safety course itself was, they're fantastic for any new rider to get on.
I would agree. And yes, the only option you had for motorcycling was my Road King, and that was definitely not, that was not for you for a brand new rider. That's not what you wanted to start on. Again.
Funny thing is, even as a, what do you call it, a seasoned rider, I still can't get on your Road King because I don't have, my hands are not long enough to grab your the clutch and the brake on the bars. I can't do that, so I can't ride your bike.
No, I think you finally get, well, that's true. That is true.
No, I can pick it up and I could ride it, but I just can't. My hands are not big enough.
Well, now I have new handlebars as well, you know.
Yeah.
I don't have stock bars on mine. I do have ape hangers on mine, so there's no way you'd be able to do it now because you wouldn't be able to reach them. Again, you're a little lady, okay, and 5'2" on your best day. I'm talking perfect posture. You might hit 5'2". So, and I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just simply saying you're not a big gal. I'm just saying it's a little harder to find a motorcycle that fits you.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. You are riding a Dyna Street Bob. What did you start off on? What was your first? I mean, you have a magnificent husband. What did he buy you first?
A Honda Rebel. We actually, within, I don't know, maybe a week or two, it wasn't too long after I got out of the course, we found a 87 Rebel, and I started on that bike, and it was perfect for me. It may not have been perfect for everybody because some people said, oh, you can't keep up with everybody else, but I'm going to tell you, I rode, I don't know, 38,000 miles on that bike, and I went all over the place, and I kept up with everybody.
Yes, you did. I do remember our friend Larry Hughes, Larry and Diane, from who we met at that Hannibal, Missouri rally. Never been to a Harley rally ever. I rode Hondas all my life, and never been to a Harley rally. And this was a hog rally in Missouri. I think it was my birthday, and that's when we said, hey, let's just go out for that. And we met Larry and Diane. It was like their first date. This was their first thing ever. And, you know, 2 years later, I was officiating their wedding and all that. And You know, they have now celebrated 22 years of marriage. But Larry used to always say that when you were on your little bike, and then he'd make the comment, if we ever put her on a real motorcycle, none of us will be able to keep up with her.
Yep.
And so then you put a ton of miles on your Rebel. You did weekend trips on it. You rode it all over the, you know, I wouldn't say all over the country, but that bike did go all over the Midwest,
Yeah.
the Southeast. I mean, it went all over the place on that Rebel. Then what'd you do after the Rebel?
After the Rebel, I went up to a Buell Blast, which again is a smaller bike, but a very peppy bike. Very fast, on the takeoff anyway.
I've done wheelies on it.
Yeah. So I got on that bike and absolutely loved it. It was perfect for me, and I can tell you a story where somebody said, and again it was friends that came out with Larry and Diane, and we rode through the forestry and some of the back roads, and one of the guys said that he had never seen a girl ride like I did. So I was proud of it because I had Heather on the back.
Right.
And still could keep up with everybody else and hot rodded that bike, and it was awesome.
You didn't keep up with everybody else. Everybody else was struggling to keep up with you,
Well,
and that's
kinda
with
true,
with a passenger on a little 500, single cylinder 500. But the Buells are badass bikes, and I know I did a wheelie on that. I know Bubba Blackwell's done quite a few wheelies on it. He played around with it out here one time. You've had him sign your bike
twice,
2 or 3 times now. He said the last time he signed, he's like, "You wash it off again. I'm not signing it anymore." And of course,
then I had to get it to another bike because I couldn't wash it.
You're right. Yeah, and so then you ended up. Now you put around 40,000 miles on that Blast.
Oh.
I forget how many miles you put on that. I just remember Bloomington Harley Davidson made a comment about they'd never seen a Blast with that many miles on it before, and that bike worked fantastic for you.
Yeah.
Fantastic for you. And then it was 08, right? When you bought your 08 street bike.
We went down. I know, right? We went down to Southside Harley Davidson, and it was a demo days.
At Southside
Not Southside.
Davidson?
Sorry, at Bloomington Harley Davidson. Wrong place. It was a demo days, and I rode. Was that the first one I rode? I'm pretty sure that was the one I got on. And you actually had said that you thought that would be the bike that I would like the most. So I took that bike for a ride and came back with the biggest smile on my face and said if it had a windshield, I'd take it home. Now, in saying that, I did ride another bike, and I'm not going to say what it is, but I did ride another bike after the Dyna just to try it out. And I remember coming back thinking, boy, this bike is, it's,
Well, and I know you don't want to say anything because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and you don't want to hurt anything else. But you just said you rode one of the others. The other bike was a Sportster, correct? Yeah. Just a totally different bike.
Yeah.
They're set up for totally different riding. Nothing wrong with the Sportster. I rode that 82 Sportster for a couple of years, waiting on my Road King to come in. Love the Sportsters, but yes, totally different.
Right.
And if you're going to go ride.
If I would have rode that one first, it may have been a different story.
Exactly.
But because I rode the bigger bike first.
Yes, exactly. And so therefore, it was like, well, let's talk. I think Jim Markland was still, the sales manager there. We bought a lot of motorcycles from Bloomington Harley Davidson. They've always treated us good. And can't say enough good things about them. And not a sponsor by any means. Never have been a sponsor. There's not since we took it over.
Right.
Have never been. But what did we do? We ended up buying because they didn't have a windshield for it. I think somebody else up in Indianapolis had it.
I think it was Indy West.
We went up to Indy and bought the windshield there, and then we rode down on my Road King. You were on the back, holding the windshield. And we rode it back. We rode down to Bloomington Harley Davidson, and they put it on there for you. Yeah. And you rode out of the parking lot on it.
I did. In fact, we rode out of the parking lot and went to Illinois. We rode the southern part of Illinois, And
Down by Cave in the Rock,
Yeah.
Garden of the Gods, or whatever,
and mind you, that bike wasn't lowered at that time.
No.
It was just standard the way it was. Rode it 1,000 miles and came back on Monday and needed my 1,000-mile service work, and all the guys there said that they put a bet on if I was going to be able to bring it back, and they all knew I was going to. So
everybody said she's bringing it back. Somebody made the comment, "Hey man, I bet you she puts 1,000 miles on it," and they're back. I think that was a Memorial weekend.
I think it was.
And so when we got home, we had to wait till Tuesday morning to bring it down there. We brought it down Tuesday morning, Tuesday morning, and it was like, they're like, I said, "So are you surprised?" They're like, "No." And one of the guys like, "No, I tried to make a bet and nobody would take it because everybody knew you guys were going to put 1,000 miles on it right away." And since then, you were on that thing. You were tippy toes. I mean, tippy toes. It was very awkward, a little harder for you to ride. You weren't as confident on it by yourself because you knew, I can't back this up. I can't. If I get in a predicament, I'm stuck.
Right.
And so I know that was rough on you, and because I'm such a caring person, I didn't let you ride that much more than 8-10 years before I said, you know what, we're going to lower this thing for you.
Yeah.
And
so 10 years later, I did.
10 years later, we got it lowered. Actually, it was probably longer than 10 years. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Because Crambo's did it.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I know we brought it to Crambo's. Chris Crampy, he put put that slammer kit on the back, and we dropped that whole thing down a good. Gosh, I think that was almost 4 inches. We dropped it.
Yeah.
Dropped it a bunch. Dropped it low enough I couldn't ride it anymore because I bottomed that thing out big time when I put my fan ass on there. So since you got it lowered, and now obviously it's been now about 10 years since you got it lowered. What was the difference when you did that?
A huge difference. Huge difference. For one thing, I can back it up now by myself. More easily. It's still heavy, but I can do it. Especially if it gets, on any kind of a slant. But we did have to put the kickstand on it, which...
Did have to change the kickstand,
yes,
didn't we?
Yes, we did, because it stood up straight.
If you ever put a lowering kit on your motorcycle, always check for the kickstand, because we did have to put the short stand on there because it stood straight up. Straight up. If you just barely touched it, it would fall over the other direction.
So whenever I parked, I tried to park on the wing.
I remember that now. You always had to find the crown and make sure that was that way. Yeah, I do remember that.
I did.
God, I forgot all about that. But yes, we did put the short stand on there, and it worked okay after that. So if there's a lady out there right now and she wants to ride, and maybe she's a little vertically challenged as you are, what advice would you give them? First of all, how did you ride the bike when you were so tippy-toed? Like when you come to a stop, did you make it a point to lean one way? Did you try to stay tippy-toed on both toes, or?
I think I did it both ways. It just depended on what kind of pavement I was on. If you have a road that has more of that crown, then I'm going to put both feet down, or I'll put one side down. But if there was somebody who is vertically challenged like me, and if you do have a little bit of a fear going onto a bike, I feel like that the first thing is to start out smaller and work your way up, because and I know that's probably a pain in the butt, especially if you have a husband who's saying, well, now I got to buy another bike. Now I got to buy another bike. But
which your husband never said that.
No.
He's amazing.
He is. So I feel like that if you need that confidence, it's easier to start. I know a lot of people start on bigger bikes and they're fine with it, but for me, that was the best route to go. Also, get on the bike and feel it, do the demo day so that you can ride that bike and see if you don't want to just go in and buy a bike and then it's like, oh no, I can't even fit on it. But, so yeah, I think that doing the demo days is definitely the thing to do so that if that bike's going to be, well enough for you to be able to put your feet down at least to tippy toe. And tippy toeing is not the best thing to do. I know you need to be flat footed, but you can do it for a little while. And I know a lot of people, even on the dirt bikes, have to, because those bikes are so tall.
Right.
But yeah, I think that for anybody who is, you know, not that tall, that they should go ahead, even if they feel like they can't do it, go through a riding course and just see. You know, you don't even have to go out and look at bikes. Just go through a riding course and see if that's what you want to do. You may get on there and say, no, this is not for me. I'd rather be on the back of a bike and let somebody else drive me around. But if you like to be in control of your own bike, then I think that you should get on there.
There we go.
And get on a bike and try it, because I like to be in control. So I didn't want to stay.
Yes, you did.
I did not want to stay on the back of your bike. I wanted to be able to get on my own bike.
And it's funny, only because you really didn't have that desire at first. You really didn't have. You didn't have the desire of, oh, I really want to do this. Like you said, hey, if I rode my own bike, the kids are small, they could ride on the back, and we could take these, if we wanted to take a trip, we could actually do it on the motorcycles. And that was kind of your main motivation. But it was after you went through the weekend course, like you said, you were bummed out because you knew you didn't have a motorcycle at home, and you weren't even going to be able to ride.
Now, I will say, even when I got home, after doing the course and we did get the bike, we lived in town. So I remember getting on my bike and just riding through town, riding the back streets, stopping and starting, and so that I could go through those gears over and over again.
And that's a small town.
Yeah, small town.
Yeah.
Not Indianapolis.
This wasn't Indianapolis. This is a small town.
But yeah, I mean, that way you get a feel how it is, because, you know, I think through the riding course, I don't know that you get out of third gear.
Right.
So once you get on the street, you're going to be riding in fourth and fifth and sixth and whatever. So you have to go through those.
I'm poor. All I got was 5.
Okay, I got 6.
Yeah, I know you did.
I'm just saying, if you get on the back roads and be able to stop and start and keep on doing that, you're going to learn. And I know that you've said it before, it's not the it's not the amount of time you've been on the bike, it's the miles.
Well, it's not how long you've been riding, it's how many miles you ride.
How many miles you ride. Because the more you ride, the better you get.
Yes.
And that's just with anything. The more you do something, you're going to be better at it. And, you know, before we used to ride so many miles, and so therefore I felt very confident in riding my bike. Now, over the past few years, I haven't been able to ride as much, so I probably am not the greatest rider like I was before. It's going to take me, you know, getting some miles under me again to be able to feel that confident to be able to, you know, go through the curves and scrape my pegs and all that stuff. But that takes time. So
yeah. And I think what I used to always say was, it's not the miles, it's the hours.
Yes.
It's the hours on the seat.
Yeah.
Not so much the miles. How many hours have you been on the seat? And I say this all the time. I talk to people and they're like, oh, I've been riding for 5 years. Okay, that's great. We're in the Midwest. We have winter. So when you say you've been riding for 5 years, how often do you ride? You know, how many miles do you put on a year? Back in the day, we were putting on 10 and 15,000 miles a year on the motorcycle, which is a lot for when you have 5 months of winter.
Right.
That's a lot of miles. Whereas other people, they're putting 500, maybe 1,000. And so, yeah, they've been riding for 5 years, but they literally have only put 5,000 miles on there. Whereas you've put 15,000 in 1 year. So after 5 years, you've got 60, 70, 80,000 miles underneath you. There's a big difference when it comes to that. But I always said it's the hours. You weren't putting on hardly any miles,
right?
Because it was all like you said, and I know how horrible that is when you're just going from stop sign to stop sign to stop sign. There's no fun at all. I just always remembered I made you do that over and over and over, and then when we were done, there was one road by us where you could get on it and you could run for a good, I don't know, 6-7 miles without a stop sign. No intersections, none of that stuff. Nice curvy road, and we'd run that down and we'd run that back before we'd park the bikes, and that was kind of your reward for putting up with all the garbage you got to do But don't you agree that that worked pretty well for you?
It did. But I still feel like that's something that any new rider should do, because any new rider that's going to get out there and just hop on the highway, it's going to be intimidating. You got big trucks, you've got cars, you've got people coming on the highway, getting off the highway, and I think that as a new rider, just taking off and doing that can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
Until you get a few, some miles under your belt and know what you're doing and knowing everything that's around you.
And, and again, there's a lot of people, like you said, you started off on a little, what is the Rebel, 250?
250.
Little 250 Rebel. Then you went up to a 500 Buell, which was a hyper 500. It was not a
Right.
little bike by any means. It was a hyper.
Well, they called this sport touring, so it was.
It was.
It
was half of a Sportster motor, is what it was, but it had, you could run 100 miles an hour on it with no problem. It would do wheelies. You could do wheelies on it. It had the power. That's always been my philosophy. And I personally think the reason you became such a good rider is because you started small, you were confident, you stayed comfortable and confident. Confidence means everything on a motorcycle. So when you moved up to the 500, it wasn't astronomical. You could still touch pretty good. We put the low seat on there for you, so you could, and you stayed confident. It wasn't until you got on the Harley where you couldn't hardly touch the ground. You lose a little bit of that confidence.
Yep.
Now, thank goodness you already had 100,000 miles underneath you on a motorcycle, so you were able to compensate. But it's, I just know so many people, they're like, no, when you buy a bike, buy what you plan on riding. Just jump right on that big bike right away. And I've known a lot of people that have done that, and I've watched them to where I was like, they're still not, after all these years, you can look at them and tell they're not that comfortable.
Right.
And I honestly believe that if they would have started on something smaller and was able to gradually move their way up, work their way up, they would have gained a lot more confidence.
Well, and you see a lot of people quit.
Right.
They get on a bigger bike and they don't have that confidence, so they end up, even 1 year in, it's like, okay, I want to get rid of the bike because I don't ride it enough and I don't feel that good on it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to interrupt our program for just a second. This cigar right here, I've had a hard time keeping it lit.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm talking. But I'll be honest, the beginning of this cigar tasted like crap.
Really?
Did not care for it at all. Now, it's kind of smoothing right in.
Sorry, I wanted to.
I thought you was leaving.
Bit. No, just wanted to sit up a little.
So this cigar, this Camacho and Nicaragua, it is finally, it's tasting a little bit better now.
That's good.
It is a spicy, not a whole lot of sweet to it, but there is a lot of spicy, a little bit of, if you were going to say sweet, it would be more like a dried fruit kind of sweet. It's not super out there.
And that's funny that you say that, a dried fruit kind of sweet, only because when you dry fruit, it actually gets sweeter.
Really?
Just saying.
Hey, I didn't say I was an expert at this crap.
No, you're not. But that's okay. I just figured I'd, let you know.
I appreciate you correcting me.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Okay, so we've gone through the whole gambit now of what you ride and all that stuff. What is your, I know we have done a ton of rides, okay? Now, obviously, with Steel Horse Thunder, we spend a lot of time with charity rides and all that. Most of the time, we don't get to ride.
Right.
We generally are filming. We have cameras. We have camera men with us. We have... So a lot of times, we're not riding. But we do several of them a year. And then, what is your favorite type of riding? I know a lot of people love doing charity rides. There's other people, they just like to ride in town. There's other people, they like to go long trips. They like to say, no, I want to take off. I'm going to hop on my bike. I'll see you guys, 10 days from now.
Right.
What is your type of riding? Cindy's got some time now. She's going to go ride. What kind of riding do you like to do?
I like the long distance riding. I like to be able to get on the back roads and just be able to ride and take in all the scenery that's around, and that would probably be my favorite.
So you like the back roads. You like southern Indiana.
Yes.
As opposed to northern Indiana.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I say that only because I know a lot of people that live in big metro areas like Indianapolis. Around here you have Indianapolis, you got Chicago, you got, some of the bigger cities. Chicago's a bit much, but like Indianapolis, it's a big city, but it's not overly. It's not a Chicago. You know what I'm saying? It's not an Atlanta. It's not one of those crazy ass cities. So I do know a lot of people love riding up in Indianapolis. They love going up, it's a circle city. So at the very center of Indianapolis, you got the big fountain, the circle right there. People love to ride up there, park their bikes up there, hang out with other people and this and that. Some people would rather go southern Indiana where you got a lot of hills, a lot of woods, a lot of curvy roads, and a lot less people, a lot less traffic.
Yeah, I like the lot less traffic. I love riding through the mountains. That's probably my favorite, is riding through the mountains. Absolutely love it. I don't mind riding in the city, but that's not my favorite to drive up to Indianapolis. Maybe if the roads were all smooth and great, it might be different, but there's a lot of potholes, and I don't know. I don't like to hit the potholes, so I and maybe it's just because my bike is all the way lowered, so it's like a hardtail.
It's a little harder. It's a little, yeah. Now, we did actually back off the shocks a little bit and
We
give
did.
you a little bit. It took the clearance away,
Right.
but we gave you a little bit of cushion.
Yeah, but if I hit one of them big bumps, that thing throws me up in the air. Not that I'm out of control, but it
Right.
will bounce me up off the bike. So, yeah, I don't particularly
You don't like that?
No, I don't.
I don't particularly care for that.
No, I've always said that I would love to do the racing.
Drag racing?
Drag racing. I would love to be able to drag race, which I haven't been able to do. It seems like through all these years, there's always been something else going on, and I've never been able to. Now that I'm getting older, it's probably not as, detrimental that I do that, but I would still like to.
Oh, yeah. And I am listening. I just wrote down Shaky.
Uh-huh.
That's who we need to have on this podcast.
Yes, we do.
Talk about drag
Yeah.
racing and stuff. I need to get Shaky on this podcast.
Yep.
So I'm not being rude. I just, when it hits, I got to write it down because
Right.
I will forget it completely.
I understand.
But yes, we need to get Shaky on this podcast for the racing aspect of things. But you also like taking the long trips too.
Oh, love the long trips. I would love to take a month off and be able to just ride. that would be ideal. Not right at this moment, but yeah, that would be ideal to be able to do that. I want to go out west. I want to be able to. We rode 101 in California in a car. Still would like to do it on a bike.
Right. Yes, I remember being out there. We went from Seattle, Washington, down to Healdsburg. Well, technically just north of San Francisco,
Right.
basically, for people that don't know the West Coast. Down to Healdsburg and then into Petaluma. I remember going down there. We're in a rental car, an Impala, and I just remember saying, we were driving through all the traffic. Seattle traffic is freaking ridiculous.
Right.
And then you leave Seattle and you're into Portland, Oregon, and it's just horrible. And I just remember saying, that's it, I'm done. I am absolutely D-U-N done. And we finally just made a beeline over to the coast and rode the coast down. And that was my dream.
Yeah.
When I was 18 years old, I had my Honda 554. Boy, me and my buddy was getting ready to buy a chopper, and we were going to take off from Atlanta, and we were heading out west, and we were going to run the entire West Coast. And, like every other 18-year-old, it was
Right.
either save my money or keep buying my drugs. And, yeah, I kept buying the drugs.
You did.
But never did the trip. Always been a bucket list trip for me. And I just remember you looking at me and go, are you going to be bummed out And I was like, at my age now, I'm not worried. I still want to see it. You know what I mean? And I remember after we did it, I was like, you know what? This gives me incentive to get back out here.
Yeah.
And even if it was to fly back out and then rent a motor, a couple bikes and run those down and back. Yeah. Ideally, yes, I would love to be able to leave here, ride all the way out there, ride all the way down there, do the whole four corners. You know what I mean? That would be awesome. Ideal. But so you have been able to take quite a few. And when we say long trips, I mean, again, it's you got to put it in perspective as to what you call long. Now people that do run cross country all the time, our trips wouldn't have been long. No. But for people that stay in the surrounding areas, the surrounding states or whatever, we have, we have taken off on the bikes and been gone for 10, 12, 14 days, whatever. What are some of your highlights of your trips? When you think about the trips that you were able to take on your motorcycle, what are some of the ones you think of first?
Well, my first would have to be the Trail of Tears, only because that was one of my very first big, huge rides, and that ride was, and because I'm Cherokee or have Cherokee in me, that had a lot of meaning to me, to do that, and to be a woman rider, I found out was even more spectacular to be able to do that ride. And what was it, 100 and I can't even remember how long
200.
it was.
I thought it was like 210 miles.
Is that what it was?
I don't know. People can Google it now. Yeah. So you can just say from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Waterloo, Alabama, however many miles that is. So
the sad thing is they don't do that ride anymore. But that ride for me was probably just the most. I remember us riding into Waterloo, and even before we got to Waterloo, I shouldn't say that, because the whole way going there were tents on the, huge tents, Indians.
Are they tents or are they teepees? Come
okay,
on,
they're
Cherokee.
Teepees. Shut up. Shut up. They were teepees. They were on the side of the road, and it was so cool because it was right after 9/11. Literally right after 9/11. I think it was the weekend after.
The weekend after 9/11. Whenever that happened, I don't remember what day it was of the week.
I was thinking it was a Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think it was a Tuesday actually.
But it was that weekend.
Yeah, that weekend, and of course we didn't know if we wanted to go because we didn't know what was going on in the world at that time. But we went, and so you had all these Indians, teepees, headdress, all kinds of stuff on the side of the road. And I just remember riding, and these Indians were up there. They had their American flags, which here they are honoring America when we did so much of them for the Trail of Tears. Right. That's what we're doing, is the Trail of Tears. And they were all out there, and it was just, I remember riding probably 90% of the way in tears because it just hit me so hard. And when we rode into Waterloo, the roads were just lined with people, and I know that you're not supposed to do this, but I took my hand off and was slapping everybody's hand as I went down there, and it was like they were in awe that there was women riders. Yeah. And I thought that was so cool because that was my first, big ride, and it was amazing. I mean, I can't say how it hit me. Like I said, I cried most of the time because it was just so amazing to me, but I absolutely loved that trip.
It was really cool. Again, you were on your Honda Rebel, and we made this trip. We had to ride down to Chattanooga before we could even start the ride. We had to go to Chattanooga. So we did all day. We stayed off the highways and did a lot of back 2-lane roads all the way to Chattanooga. Camped that night. We set up a tent. Guy and Kathy were with us. They were on their bikes. And I just remember we set up our tents. We're camping. We're talking to people because we'd never done this before. And this ride had been going on for many years. So we're like, so what time's everybody head down there? La la la. They go, oh, 3 o'clock. This campground will be empty. Is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, 3 a.m. This place will be empty. This will be a ghost town. Nobody will be here. We'll all be going down at the Chattanooga, lining up for this ride. If you want to be, if you want to be near the front. And I remember getting up that morning, and it was like, oh shit, they're all leaving. And so it was like, crap, we better hurry up. And I just remember how bummed out I was because we were almost a mile away from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, this didn't do us any good. And then we found out that it went like 12 more miles behind us.
It was 52. The line of bikes was 52 miles long.
When it finally all got going.
All got going, and we were a mile from the beginning, which we were at the front.
Yes. Yeah, here we thought we blew it, and it was like, okay, if this is 52 miles long, and we're in the first mile, we did pretty darn good.
Yeah. Now, I will say, the worst thing about that trip was the fact that the chain came off my bike. Because it was a chain, and we had to get my chain fixed, and there was a dealership that worked on every bike. It didn't matter, they worked on whatever, and they fixed my chain on my bike so we could get going. So we ended up falling behind everybody else, but
until the last stop before Waterloo.
Yeah.
The last gas stop that they had for everybody. And this was police escorted the whole way.
Yeah.
It was, I thought it was 200 and some miles. That was police escorted the entire way. But even when we fell apart and when we had to stop and we had to get it fixed, they figured out a way to fix it. They were fixing every motorcycle that came in. If anybody's having a problem, they said, hey, we will make it work somehow. Yeah. We'll make it work. Even with yours, they didn't have exactly what we needed, but they had enough stuff to make it work and got us back going again. And even when we were riding and we weren't with the actual full group, shoot, we were still riding with about 150 motorcycles.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. It really was amazing.
Yeah. Again, the biggest thing was the fact that it was right after 9/11 and you had American flags everywhere. They were just, and to hear these people who they're doing a ride for the Trail of Tears, which is, when we as Americans made the Indians, walk and die, right, and die. So many died along the way.
I know you love it here in the Chattanooga, North Georgia mountain area. We know you like it out here, but you know what? You're going to be happier out in Oklahoma. So yeah, just pick up your stuff. Let's start walking.
Yeah. So I mean, here we are doing a ride for that.
Yeah.
And yet they love America so much that they would fly their American flags, and you don't see that kind of pride anymore in people that feel that way about their country. And I get it, but it's still, this is our country. If we don't take pride in it, we're going to lose it. So
I agree 100%.
I'm sure that's the way the Indians felt back then. I mean, those Cherokees, I'm sure that's the way they felt. I mean, here they were having to, haul ass out to Oklahoma when they already had their reservation in Cherokee, North Carolina.
They were already, they were established. It was, it's very, very sad. But the fact that when calamity hit, they stuck together, and to see the flags flying by the teepees, you're exactly right. Because if there was anybody that was really going to be pissed, and I'm sorry, I know we mistreated a lot of people in this country, just like every other country that's ever been built. It's always been built. Every major country has been built on slave labor. That was nothing new. It's not like America invented slavery. That was brought over from all the other countries that have already been being built. I mean, that was just a thing. I'm not in favor of slavery one bit at all. But I do know the Indians probably had it a lot worse than any of the slaves. Well, they were slaves too. I mean, we made them slaves as well. But we just, and to see them say, you know what, but it's still our land. And even though we hate what you did to us, it's still our land, and therefore they flew the flag. It was just amazing.
It was
absolutely amazing.
So yeah, that was. Long story short, that was.
Yeah, let's get off of the whole that part there.
That was definitely probably the most memorable, as far as just the realization You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Of everything. So that was one of the greatest rides I ever did. But on top of that, I mean, we've had so many trips. I couldn't. It's hard to pick out just one because, you know, you have all the stuff that happens on those rides. But I would say the ride to around Superior. That was another ride that was just. I think we were gone 12 days, 11 days. We went around Lake
At least.
Yeah, we went and did the rally with Bubba and I think he did a stunt show. I don't know if he did a jump there, but
No jumps that year. I think it was Harley's 105th, if I'm not mistaken.
It was
the 105th.
yes.
He did the jump on the 100th anniversary, his comeback jump. And then on the 105th, there was no jump, but he had 4 shows, and they were at 4 different dealerships.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we had to set up and tear down every day. And we did. We went to work.
Yeah.
We went there to work with them. And just as we did for many of those national hog rallies. And, yeah, we had to work the first 4 days there in Milwaukee with him. And we did those 4 days. And then I just remember that last day, we had our bikes already loaded. They were loaded, ready to go.
Yeah.
We got done with the stunt shows. We got the trailer all loaded up, his stuff all loaded up, got everything done, and then we said our goodbyes there. And then we went north.
We did. And it's amazing because in Canada it's so much different than here. I don't know. Maybe just that area.
Farther into Canada.
Yeah, further in. So, yeah, I just...
Thunder Bay, not so much.
Not so much. It
Not
was,
so
it was
much.
a bigger town, but to go all the way into there and to be on a one-lane highway,
Well,
two-lane, where if they have road construction, they just close it down and you have to wait and wait and wait until they say you can go, and you go miles and miles. I remember, I think that was the first time that I realized that the big old fat tire on my bike was the greatest thing in the world, because we had to cross over from one lane to the other lane.
To the gravel.
And there was gravel this high up, and I watched your bike squirrel around on that, and I went over and like a champ. I didn't squirrel at all, so it was awesome for me.
But then we rode, and you went 20 miles on gravel.
Yeah.
You were on gravel all the way going out that way. And then cross back over through the big thick piles again to finally get back on blacktop again.
But it was still it was beautiful up there. I mean, you take a walk back in time because, you know, they had telephone booths, which, I don't know, some people may not even remember a telephone booth because you don't see them anymore.
Right.
They had those. You didn't know if they were going to have gas or not at the gas station. Everybody had blueberries.
They did have
nice.
blueberries. It was September, so yeah, it was Labor Day weekend. So it was the week we spent all Labor Day weekend there in Milwaukee, and then we took off after that and did the whole North Shore Lake Superior. So a lot of blueberries. A lot of blueberries.
But it was a cool trip to be able to just pull off. We didn't do a lot of miles every day, but we went long enough, and we would stop and see the sights instead of just doing the miles. So that was a pretty cool trip.
Can I say my favorite part of that trip?
Yeah.
Can I just jump in here real quick? I remember we already had rooms in Thunder Bay for a couple nights, because that was the place we really wanted to go to. You know, so we went up through Wisconsin all the way up to the Dells. Then you kind of go over into whatever it was, into Minnesota. You know, up by Duluth, I think it is.
It is.
And then we crossed into Canada. From there, we are not going to go into that.
Not going into that. But
so we were there at Thunder Bay, and Thunder Bay, to me, my personal opinion of Thunder Bay is just a dirty, nasty little town. I didn't like it. We were both like, this is Thunder Bay? It looks so much cooler online than it does in real life. This is horrible.
Now, I will say that if we ever go back, if we have a good experience at the border, I think that your mind would have been changed probably
I disagree, but that's okay.
Okay.
Because the last night we did have a good time.
Yes.
Our last night there, we went back towards the border.
Yeah.
And so yes, we had a horrible time getting into Canada. Horrible time. And I do remember the last night we were there. The next morning we were going to be taken off to go on around the North Shore, and we went back because there was a whatever they call their state parks. You know what I mean? We have state parks here in the U.S.
I can't remember what they're
whatever
called.
they call theirs, but it's right there by the border again. And we went back to that state park, and we just went out and we walked through the woods. We found the waterfall that was out there. It was super cool.
Yes.
Had a great time. By then, I was finally calming down from the garbage I put up with 2 days ago, getting into their country. And we were heading back to Thunder Bay. And I just remember riding, and there was nobody else on the road. It was just you and I. Again, it's just a 2-lane highway.
Right.
And we're riding, and I just remember seeing something cross the road in front of us. And I was like, the heck was that? And I was like, it looked like a dog, but it was big. It was a big dog.
It was.
And I remember as we went, and it stopped. And it got across the street, and it stopped on the side of the road. It didn't keep going into the woods. It stopped. I'm like, all right, what's going on? And I remember we slowed way down, because I didn't know, is this thing coming back? I don't know what this thing is. And the more closer we got to it, it was very obvious. It was a wolf.
Yeah.
Big ass wolf.
Yeah.
And I just remember riding, and that thing just sat there on the side of the road, and he just had his chest puffed out, and he just sat there and watched us as we went by. And I remember looking at him as I'm going by, and I just remember the hair on my neck, my arms, it stood straight up. I had chills all over my body, and I just remember going, that was the coolest thing I've ever experienced ever on a motorcycle. I mean, it was like a religious experience. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's like one of those aha moments in your life that you'll never ever forget. And I just remember watching that big wolf just sitting on the side of the road. And that, to me, that was the
cool.
coolest part of that entire trip. And that was probably one of my favorite motorcycle trips I've ever taken. That was amazing. Now, I do remember coming back to the States. We went around the North Shore, and we were going to come in on Sault Ste. Marie. Again, it's September. We're in Canada. It's cold now.
Cold.
And I do remember that morning we got up, and we got on the bikes, and it was 1 Celsius, right? So it's like 33 degrees,
right.
34 degrees, and it was misting.
Yes.
And so it was kind of a rainy mist at 33 degrees.
And it was cold.
It was cold.
Yeah.
And we left wherever it was, Wawa, I think, is where we stayed the last night. And I remember getting into Sault Ste. Marie. So now we've been riding. It's been dark because we got out. It was still dark out when we first started riding. And I just remember pulling up, and after all the crap we went through going into Canada, I learned my lesson. Go up one at a time. So when it was our turn to go up, I remember I rode up. You stayed back there. And because we got scolded at for going up there, we were starting to go up 2 at a time. So I remember I pull up there, and I just remember the guy asking me what's going on. I told him, and he's like, "Is she with you?" And I said, "Yes." "How is she? Are you related?" I said, "Yes, my wife." And then he goes, "Is she okay?" I was like, "Well, yeah." And I look back, and I see you on your bike, shivering your ass off. And I just remember I looked back, I was like, "Yeah, she's freezing." And he said, "Have her come up here." And of course they ask you all the questions. Are you being brought across here against your will? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And then finally he's like, "Are you okay?" And I just remember you looking at him and you said, "No, I'm freezing right now." And he chuckled and he said, "All right, you guys go on and go ahead." That was a pretty funny experience.
It was.
But again, that only took us an extra 2 minutes to get in, not an extra 2.5 hours.
Now, the worst thing about that trip was we were in Wawa, and the place that we stayed at could have let us know that the Northern Lights were out that night, and we could have seen them, but they didn't, and we didn't get to see them, so that was the bummer.
But we did get to hear everybody talking about it the next morning at breakfast and everything else, talking about how spectacular the Northern Lights were.
Best
And
show
I'm
they've
like,
ever seen.
you guys know we're from America. Why didn't somebody come tell us? I mean, God knows there were no locks on the doors at
There
this
was
little
not.
place. It was paper thin walls. It's like,
Listen to the guys talking all night.
yeah, they could have simply just said, hey guys, if you want to see Northern Lights, walk outside.
Right.
But no, nobody
No.
said nothing.
Still a great trip.
It was a good trip. All right, so we've talked a little bit about your motorcycling and this and that. Cindy, what do you do for a living? I know you are the co-host of Steel Horse Thunder. I also know that by saying you're a host of Steel Horse Thunder means you've spent a crap load of money to make Steel Horse Thunder a possibility. I know you have not made one penny doing Steel Horse Thunder for almost a dozen years now. What do you do?
I clean houses.
You're a maid.
I'm a maid.
You're the old maid.
I'm the old maid. I clean, dirty houses.
Nice.
Actually, my houses are clean, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain. I love all the houses I clean for, so.
Been doing it for
34 years.
So basically 35 years been doing this. And some of these people you've been doing damn near 35 years.
Yeah.
So what does Cindy do when she's not working?
What do I do when I'm not working? When am I not working?
I was going to say, I can't really ask that question anymore.
No.
Can I talk a little bit about what you're going through right now on a personal level?
Mm-hmm. If I cry, I'm sorry.
I know right now, your folks are in their 80s and your mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's maybe almost 2 years ago now. You spend an awful lot of time as a caregiver now.
I do.
Unfortunately, Alzheimer's is now probably the #1 disease in this country.
I know it has surpassed heart disease, and I believe it's surpassed cancer at this point, I think.
And when you think about it, heart disease is probably the biggest killer of people.
Right.
Regardless of what people try to tell you.
When they say that it has surpassed, I mean, it's... I think everybody... I guess I couldn't say everybody, but I think most people in this day and age have had a friend or a family member or a distant relative, whatever, that has been affected by it at this point in their life.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I know you're not the only one going through this. And there's other people going, what is it like? I mean, I know you're there every day except Saturday. It's your only day you don't go there because you're working for Steel Horse and you're filming, generally filming and doing things on Saturday, a lot of times, sometimes on Sundays as well. What is that like? What would you, if somebody else is going into this now, somebody else, there's people that are listening right now that are like, oh my God, this is what I'm getting ready to go into. Share your experience, share your knowledge, share your concerns, whatever you want to say at this point that might help somebody else.
Well, with Alzheimer's, I have found out that it's different for everybody. Some people go through it fast, some people go through it slow. My mom, of course, is going through it very fast. But you have the ones that can linger on for a long time. But in the beginning, when I found out, I think the best thing that I could have done was to get informed. And there is lots of information on YouTube. Her name is Tam Cummings, and she has been probably the one that I listen to on a daily basis because she is so informative about every aspect of Alzheimer's and what you're going to go through from beginning to end. She starts with the very basics. You can listen to her talk about from the very basics of when it starts. A lot of people don't even know their parent or whoever it is going through it because in the beginning a lot of people can hide it. And you don't think about people being able to hide a disease, but because you don't look sick. With most people,
Right.
They look sick. So think about that in that way. You think, oh, well, that person's not sick. You know, they forget sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They do this sometimes. You know, maybe they, you know, forget where they're going, whatever. But and that doesn't mean that you have it, because we all forget.
Right. As we get older, everybody does.
Everybody forgets. But once you start realizing some of the things that are going on about it, you start seeing some of the things. And but the best thing you can do is be informed. Be informed, because without being informed, you don't know what you're going to hit from one day to another. Every day's different, and you really need to be able to listen to somebody who can tell you exactly, I guess I shouldn't say exactly, but she can tell you what is going to happen from, you know, from stage 1 to stage 7. You know, it's just, there's 7 stages of Alzheimer's that they go through. So, you know, in the beginning it can be hidden, and it can be hidden all the way up until probably stage 3. And, you know, maybe even longer, I don't know, but it's the information that you can get is going to help you more than anything in the world.
I know where you're at right now with all this. I know your mom. It's weird, because I mean, she knows you, no doubt about it. She knows you. She doesn't necessarily know who you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, she knows who she.
She looks at you as a caregiver, not so much her daughter.
She looks at me as her mom most of the time. Sometimes I'm the one who comes to cook, or sometimes I'm her mom, or sometimes I'm just the person who she knows the most, or that she's with the most. So she knows me, but she doesn't always know who I am.
Right.
Which I'm still thankful for. Even though she doesn't know I'm her daughter most of the time, at least I still am that person. And they call it shadowing, when somebody follows you around. So me as a caregiver, she loves to follow me around the house, and she's always tries to be by my side when she's doing that. And so that's called shadowing, and a lot of people do that, and some people hate it. I don't hate it, but...
No, I know you're very fortunate to be able to spend as much time as you do. It's hard. It's very hard. But I also know, and it's also rewarding, that at least you get to spend as much time as you can. Because we all know the end result.
Right.
We all know the end result. It's horrible. I hate where it's at, you know. We dealt with suicide many years ago, when it was not talked about.
Right.
And it was kind of the same thing. And now, about every person in this world has been affected by suicide in some way. Sadly, that's where we're seeing Alzheimer's right now.
Right.
And that is, to me, that is the most horrible disease out there. The most, you know, I remember watching my dad go through with dementia from his strokes and everything else. And I get it, they're different in a sense, but yet the end result is exactly the same. And I just know, I know how difficult that can be.
Well, just as me, as me, you know, I'm, a little over 2 years in of taking care of Mom, and taking her to all her appointments and being there every day for her. I was there 7 days a week in the beginning, and kind of backed off with the show, trying to keep at least a couple days off. Ended up having to go back to 6 days a week. So, you know, if I can take 2 days off, sometimes it's good, but I usually can't. And routine is the best thing for anybody with Alzheimer's. Routine is the best thing you can do, because they get into that routine. So in the beginning, when Mom did know me and I was there every day, it just became a whole thing of I'm there every day. She knows I'm there every day. And so even though she may not know who I am now, she knows I'm going to be there every day. So for her, the routine of it is the best thing you can do. you know, with your dad, when we took care of your dad when he was here, we didn't have the information we have now. I wasn't a caregiver then either, so
No.
it was difficult, very difficult, extremely difficult, because the kids were here and they had to watch him go through it. But I didn't have the information to know how to take care of him in the way that I have the information now. I can get online, I can listen to people, where I didn't have that back then, to be able to learn more about what was going on. And
Right.
I was working and I was raising kids, so it was just very difficult. I will say, in the difference with taking care of your dad and now watching my mom and dad, because they're still together, it's a whole different aspect of watching the partner have to suffer along with the one who is suffering. So you have the person with Alzheimer's suffering what they're going through, and then you have that spouse that's losing their partner
Right.
every day, piece by piece, and days of not knowing who that person is. And that's been very difficult for me. I can handle mom not knowing who I am, but sometimes it's very difficult for me to know she doesn't know who dad is.
Right. So what would you've gone through for a couple years now. You have to do self-care for yourself as well. I'm a big advocate of this. Just like when you get on the airplane. When you get on an airplane, what do they tell you? You go through the whole rigmarole. If, in case of this and that, the masks will drop down. What do they tell you? You put your mask on first. Then, if the person next to you needs assistance, then you can assist them. I'm all about that. I'm all about, listen, you got to take care of yourself first. And if you're no good,
Right.
then you can't help anybody else. So you got to make sure you are good. What would you recommend to somebody that's going through this as far as their self-care? Now, you are fortunate because you have, like I said, one of the greatest husbands in the world, probably the greatest. Let's
Right. Yes.
let's not sugarcoat it.
Right.
You got
I
the
do.
best husband ever.
Definitely.
So, but what would you?
I definitely recommend you get into a group where you can have other people with Alzheimer's. I don't say that from experience because I haven't had the chance to do it myself. I probably should take more self-care for myself, but I don't, because sometimes I just don't have time to do that when you have to be the caregiver and then go to work and then try to lay down and sleep without crying yourself to sleep. Sometimes that's hard, and it's hard to have self-care. So I know I need it, probably more than I get. I do take time. You know, we have a hot tub, so getting in the hot tub and drinking a glass of wine is a lot of good self-care. But they have groups. The doctor that I take mom to, she has given me paperwork for counselors that you can talk to one-on-one, or you can get into a group. I know they have a group here in Martinsville where you can go in, and it's other people that are facing that. They also say that if your loved one that you're taking care of, if there's any way possible to have an adult daycare where they can go, even if it's just for a couple hours a day, so that you get a break, or a couple of days a week. You don't have to do it every day. Some people do. I have a friend who, she takes her stepdad to adult daycare every day, and so he's there. But you can do that just a couple of days a week, just so that the other people can get a break away from it. So there's a lot of stuff. The I think it's Alzheimer's Association has a lot of different articles that you can get. Just to be, I mean, the biggest thing is to be informed and know what to do, because you don't realize just how worn out a caregiver will get. And they say that caregivers actually can almost have a form of Alzheimer's themselves, because they have so much going on and dealing with it. And so if I'm forgetting words, that's why.
Right.
But they also say that sometimes caregivers will actually die before their loved one dies because of the stress that they have and the anxiety they carry themselves. So definitely you have to self-care. You have to get into some kind of group, or, you have helped me tremendously, of course, but it's just, you have to get some kind of care for yourself, because otherwise you're going to be so stressed, because again, every day is different. With Alzheimer's, you never know what you're going to walk into. There are runners, so you have people with Alzheimer's that they could walk out the door and you can't find them, or you have those that are, they call them, what is it called, where they want to pick up stuff and take it to other places, or they want to, because everything's theirs. So they I think she calls them gatherers, and I can't remember what she calls it, but they gather things here, and then they walk by something else and they see the pretty things and they let those go, and they pick up those and they take them somewhere else. So you find stuff everywhere in the house. You never expected to find things. And the stress of it, of just, my mom hallucinated, so she has hallucinated daily for 2 years now, which has caused probably more stress than, and not every person with Alzheimer's hallucinates. They do have delusions sometimes, or they have other things that happen, but with the hallucinations, they become so real to them. In the beginning, it wasn't a real thing to Mom. We could talk her out of it and say they're not out there, but you can't do that anymore. So you almost have to just agree with them and say, oh, they're there. So for me, I just tell Mom every day that if they're out there, they're good people. So that way, she doesn't have the fear of thinking that they're gonna come and steal her house, or or the place that she's staying, because sometimes she doesn't know it's home. So
Right.
it's a different situation. So self-care you have to get into a group, you have to be able to be around other people. Some people don't have, some people just can't handle it. I will say there's people that just can't deal with it with their loved ones, and they can't go into that situation, and I totally understand that. Sometimes they move away just because they can't handle it. Fortunately, I do have some help.
Yeah.
But there's other people that they don't get any help. And so, I will say it's very hard with Alzheimer's to get help as with other diseases. Because for some reason with Alzheimer's, you can't always get, if you do get them into an adult daycare, maybe with some insurance it's different, but usually you have to pay out of pocket. If you put them into a home, a lot of times it's out of pocket. They I don't know why, but they don't have that for them. So, but yeah, sorry, I kind of ran on.
No, by all means, no, and that's what I want to say. And to me, some of your self-care is your knowledge, learning. I know when you're cleaning, you listen to podcasts all the time. And so you're always listening to some of these doctors and some of these other people that are talking. Knowledge helps a bunch. It does help a bunch, and in a sense, it becomes some of your self-care, because you understand. The more you understand what's going on, the easier. Not that it makes it easy, but it's easier to at least understand what's going on.
Yes.
If you understand what's going on, at least then you can kind of regroup.
It's true. If I didn't have that, if I didn't have where I could get online and be able to find information of some of the reasons why Mom does some of the things she does, I think I would have went crazy, because I wouldn't have known how to handle it. So, I mean, one of the things that she does talk about is the fact that, so my mom calls me Mom, so she thinks I'm her mom. So she thinks she's younger So you have to get into their decade. You have to get into what year they're in. So if she's calling me mom, she's probably thinking that she's a teenager. The reason that she doesn't remember dad is because she's not in his era. So she looks at him as an old man, and she's thinking, why is this old man sitting here? And if I tell her it's her husband, he doesn't look like her husband.
Right. Same as the house.
Right.
When am I going to go home? Well, you are home. This is not my home. Because if she's back to being 12 years old,
she's looking to go
she's thinking
home.
of her 12-year-old home.
And that's one of the things that I've learned also. You can, when they're in that time, if their home was close by that they grew up in, you could take it to them and they still wouldn't realize that that was home. But it's still that era. You have to get into what era they're in. So if they're not in the same time zone you're in, it's just difficult to handle. I will say I'm in like 3 of the Alzheimer groups on Facebook, and to listen to some of the people, you can understand how hard it is. I'm very fortunate that the relationship that I have with mom has been very well, and she has not gotten mad at me over things. We've had a few times where she's gotten, you know, she didn't believe me or whatever, but it hasn't been to the point of some of the other people that I listen to online that it's been really, really detrimental for them. And so it's just, again, get informed, know what you're getting into when you become, if you're going to be a caregiver for somebody who has Alzheimer's, you have to know the stages that they're going to go through, every stage, and what those stages, what exactly you're going to see in those stages. And not only for that, but you know what stage they're in. So you can know, okay, she's in stage 2 now because this is what's going on, or she's in stage 3 now because this is what's going on. And I think that's been very good for me to be able to know exactly where on the timeline mom is. Not that it's good for me because I know what that timeline brings, but it helps you to know how to face some of the challenges that you're going to face along the way.
All right, let's change gears a little bit before we call it a night. Let's change gears a little bit. I just felt like that needed to be said. I felt like there's somebody out there that needs to hear this.
And if they wanted to, if somebody's listening to this and they wanted to ask who all that I have listened to, I do know that Tam Cummins is one of them, but I have quite a few other ones that I listen to that are very good to listen to, and they can help a lot, so people can.
And this podcast goes out on every podcast server. Obviously on YouTube, there's actually video that goes with it. Everywhere else, it's just audio. But people can always, you know, especially on YouTube, you can leave a comment. And if somebody wants to ask you questions, they can leave you a comment. You can answer those questions in a more personal way. And that's why I really wanted you to talk a little bit about this. I just want to say this. When you started riding the motorcycle, you were too little, okay? Because you're not just 5'2". You know, you're barely 100 pounds. So you're a tiny little person. And a lot of people would say, you can't do it.
Right.
And yet you do it anyway. And you've done it anyway. You're a badass. And that is just something that you have going for you in your corner, is you are a badass. Doing the Steel Horse Thunder TV show, you spent most of your life in the background, never saying a word, this and that. When it was said you were going to be my full-time co-host, there was many people that said she can't do it. Cindy can't do it. She cannot. Not that I don't like her. She just can't do it. This show won't work if she does it. And you kind of said, I'm going to do it. And you proved everybody wrong. When you came on board, it was with rave review. Everybody loved it. It's like, oh, thank God. Why wasn't Cindy on here from the very get-go? So you proved everybody wrong with that. You know what I mean? And now here you are And I know you're the baby of your family. And yet, here you are, the one that stepped up and said, we got to take control of this. We got to make this work. And you've done that. You are a badass. There's no doubt about it. You are a badass. So let me go back now. Speaking of badasses, Danica Patrick is a badass, right? She is a badass when it comes to race cars and everything else. Steve Reeves, that had the Steel Horse TV show. We took it over. We changed it to Steel Horse Thunder just for legality purposes. Very good friends with Steve's family, his kids, and all that. Stevie Reeves, very well known here in the Midwest. He was a sprint car guy. You know, he was an open wheel driver, and he spent his time, you know, World of Outlaws, that kind of stuff. He also did some the IRL IndyCar Racing League, and then him and Jeff Gordon kind of grew up together here in this area. He ended up going to NASCAR. He did pretty darn good in the Busch Series, and he is still with NASCAR. He is actually a spotter now, and he's been with many I think he spent the first three Jimmy Johnson's 3 championships. He was Jimmy Johnson's spotter, and for people that don't know, the spotter is a very, very important person. When you talk about the team, you're going to see the driver's name, the owner, obviously, and then the driver's name. You're going to see the crew chief, and you're going to see the spotter. And then it has the crew, and the crew is your tire changers, your fuel man, your jack man, that kind of stuff. So Stevie Reeves has been huge in this area for a long time. He started he was giving us passes. So when they were coming to do the Brickyard, we would get to go back there, and we'd have these special hot passes. So we were hanging out with drivers, with owners. We were walking where the haulers are at and all that kind of stuff. And back then, this was 10, 11 years ago, and I just remember, you know, Stevie said, I'm going to give you these hot passes for one reason and one reason only, because I've told everybody I know Danica's twin sister. And I just remember I was filming somewhere, so I didn't get to go for that. So I did not meet Danica, but I know you got a chance to meet Danica Patrick and have your picture taken with her for that very reason. How was that? That had to be a pretty cool experience. I mean,
it was very cool. Very cool.
I know you said she was professionally courteous.
Yes, professional.
Courtesy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're busy. They got stuff going on. So, but yeah, it was awesome to be able to meet her, and because to me, she's a badass. I mean, here she is. She's racing, and something that I think I could have been great at if I would have done it.
Probably.
But yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. I appreciate Stevie for doing that for me, because yeah, we do look a little bit alike. Probably not now, because, you know, I'm older, but
you know, I always said, I always laughed about it, because when we would be back there, you would have literally hundreds of people running and flocking to you, wanting your autograph, because they all thought you were Danica Patrick. And that's what I'm saying. It's not like you guys kind of looked alike. Everybody. Everybody. You know, you guys are the same height, the same weight, the same facial structure, the same nose, the same hair back there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was just one of those things where it was like, that's all anybody knew you as. Everybody. I mean, half the people today still call you Danica half the time. And to me, I always thought that was super cool. I mean, like for me, you know, I went through a time when Kevin Costner did Open Range, and I had shorter hair and I had the shorter beard, and it was just this part right here, like what he had in that movie, and all of a sudden everybody's like, damn, you look like Kevin Costner. But that was just for a small period of time because of one movie, you know. Every now and then I get somebody going, hey, you look like Jeff Daniels, you know, and I get that, but with you, it was nonstop. You're Danica Patrick. We were doing the Miracle Ride. Big ride now. This is, you're talking, you know, 7,000, 8,000 motorcycles. We're in this huge, big-ass parking lot, and you'd have people coming up to you then. Hey, are you Danica? I remember one time we were sitting there, And Heather was with us, and Wes was with us. Cameraman Wes was a little, young lad.
Yeah.
But I just remember this guy just wouldn't take no for an answer. And finally, he's like, "Well, can I have my picture taken with you anyway?" And next thing I know, you've got a line of people waiting to have their picture taken with you. And I just remember Heather going, "It's a good thing you're not jealous."
Right.
I said, "You mean because they want their picture taken with her?" And I was like, "Oh, that doesn't bother me at all." I said, "You know what bothers me? They all think she's Danica Patrick. They all think I'm her dad. That's what pisses me off.
Right.
They don't think I'm her husband. They think I'm her dad." And to me, it's just when you have somebody like you who is just, you're a tiny person and you're a quiet person. Now, I will say this. A lot of people, they're hollering at you, Danica, whatever, and you're like, "I'm not her." Many times we hear, "You know what? You're right. You're smiling. You can't be her," because she always had that scowl on her face, which you have a scowl on your face a lot as well. But as soon as you smile, they were like, "Oh yeah, that can't be Danica." Danica doesn't smile that much. I just always thought that was super cool. But it never, ever, ever went to your head. You have been so grounded and rooted in who you are and what life is all about. Where do you get that? Where do you find that strength of, I'm just another person that's trying to figure this crap out as I go along? How do you stay grounded like that?
Well, I will say that God definitely has grounded me, but because it's only by Him that I can do what I do. Definitely, because I feel like I stay pretty strong most of the time. I have my my bad moments, but I feel like I stay pretty grounded. But yeah, it has to be God, because there's nothing else. There's nothing in me that would say it's me, because it's not me.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I can say is I feel like for me, I have so much love in my heart that's why I hurt so bad.
I would agree with that 100%.
Because my love outweighs probably anything else that I have. And it doesn't matter if I like you or if I don't like you, I can't be the, you asked.
I asked.
I feel like
Such a pretty table, too.
It is, and you messed it all up.
I messed up their nice, pretty table.
So yeah, that's all. I mean, it's all God. It's nothing that there's nothing special about me. It's just God living through me. And if I can show love to one person and give them hope for, to go on, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. Even when I don't feel like I can go on, I'm still going to help somebody else. That's what I have in me.
I like it. I like it a lot. Well, we'll probably go ahead and wrap this thing up here. What are your future plans? What is... How do we want to say this? Cindy finally has time to go do a week. She's got a week now. Cindy has a week where she can go and do whatever she wants to do. What does Cindy do on that week? 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Let me say this. You got 2 weeks.
I got 2 weeks.
You got 2 weeks. You can do whatever you want now.
If it's nice weather, I'm gonna get on my bike and ride.
It's always nice weather. And when it's our fantasy, it's always nice weather. Okay.
So in
sunny and 80, baby.
Yes,
Sunny and 80.
I'm gonna get on my bike and ride. When the time comes and I have time, my time will be being able to get on the bike and just let the wind flow through me so that I can just let everything go, I guess.
I remember. Where are you going to go? You got 2 weeks. Where are you going?
Where am I going?
Anywhere special? Anything special? Like, you know what? I got 2 weeks. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go. I want to ride. Okay, where are you going to ride?
Well, I don't know how long it takes to get out west, but 2 weeks probably isn't long enough. So, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the mountains. I'm going to go wherever. I'm going to go to West Virginia. I know that sounds
2 weeks.
funny. I know,
2 weeks.
right?
You can go to Yellowstone. You
Okay,
can
Yellowstone.
You can make it.
I don't know how long it takes to get there. I'm just saying, I'm going to put miles on my bike. That's what I want to do. When I do get time, I want to put miles on my bike. I want to be able to ride. I haven't been able to ride in the past few years now. I put very, very little miles on my bike. So my biggest thing is I would love to be able to ride. I'd love to be able to go and see the world before I die. That's what I want. I want to be able to.
And when you say the world, you're just talking about the country.
Oh, I'm just talking about. United States. I'm not talking about anywhere else.
I'm going to be a world traveler. I'm going to Colorado.
I'm going to Colorado. Yeah. Well, and you got to go to Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, well, actually, all you got to do is go to Illinois now.
I was going to say, you got to go all
I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say Michigan,
Yeah.
Illinois. You ain't got to go that
They're
far.
all around us. Just not
you
here.
You don't have to go too far
Yeah.
anymore.
No, I just want to ride.
Yeah.
And in fact, at this point, yes, I'd love to go out west and all that, but most of all, I would like to just be able to get on the bike and ride. I remember in 2007, towards the end of the year, me and you got on the bikes and we rode for 3 days, and we didn't hardly talk. We rode, and we did go out to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And when we stopped at night, we would talk a little bit and go to sleep and get up the next day. And that was what brought us peace and comfort and cleared our minds from everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and obviously that was when we were dealing with Eric committing suicide in Memorial Weekend of 07. Mm-hmm. I think we were finally into September, if I'm not mistaken. Hadn't stopped, hadn't taken any time off. I was scheduled to work with Bubba Blackwell in 07. So, I mean, literally, we buried Eric. We had his funeral on a Thursday, and I was working an event. We all were. Mm-hmm. It was Miracle Ride.
Yeah.
We did Miracle Ride with Bubba, and then I had the next, I think, 4 weeks already slated to be with him. Mm-hmm. And I had 1 weekend off because we were doing our daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
And then I was right back to work with him again. And I worked with him a bunch. And I do remember in September, it was like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I have nothing left inside me whatsoever. And again, this is that self-care.
Right.
The self-care we were just talking about. And I do remember it was like, we got to go. Mm-hmm. We got to go. I think we took a Friday off. Yeah. I think back in those days, I think I had Fridays off. Probably. Because at the sawmill, because we were doing I was doing 4 12-hour days, so I was working Monday through Thursday. And I just remember it was on a Friday morning, we just got on the bikes and we rode. And I remember you saying, where are we going to go? I said, I have no idea. We're just going to be gone from here. And I remember riding, and I had done an event with Bubba, did a jump down in, I forget what it's even called now. I don't even remember the name of the town. Blue something. At the southern part of West Virginia.
Bluefield.
Bluefield, West Virginia, something like that.
I think that's what it was, Bluefield.
I remember we just started riding. We ended up in Kentucky. We were riding down the road in Kentucky. I was like, well, shoot, this is how I came home from Bluefield. So I was like, oh, no, I know this great road. Mm-hmm. You know, the road I came home on was, and again, I'm leaving a jump site with Bubba. We worked all weekend long. Of course, I'm leaving at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Ride this road along the river. It was like, oh my God, what a road. And I remember saying, this is going to be a blast. Well, this time we hit it at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and it was like bumper to bumper cars. It was like, holy crap, get me out of this, please. Yeah. And I do remember that last part of the trip, and we got to Bluefield, and we finally stopped, and we got a hotel. Mm-hmm. And like you said, that's all we did. We rode. You're on your own bike.
Yeah.
I'm on my own bike. We didn't talk at
Yeah,
all.
we don't have helmets to talk to each other.
No, we'd take a car if we wanted to do that. And I just remember the next day, we spent the entire day, and we rode from sunup to sundown.
Yeah.
And we never left West Virginia.
No.
We just rode the mountains up and down, all around and everywhere else. And then it was like, all right, we probably ought to start heading towards, let's start getting closer to Ohio. And then the next day we rode home from there. And I do remember how much that helped. It was like, that's what I needed right there.
Yeah.
I just had to have 3 days away. And again, it goes back to self-care. Now, again, you got to keep doing those kind of things. Of course, we did not, and I had my issues in 08, but that is part of the self-care.
It is.
Because you got to have that. You really do. And I understand, at certain times, you do what you got to do. And again, we're not sitting here complaining about any of it, because you do what you got to do. When you're in a certain situation, you do what's got to be done.
And I will say I'm very thankful for where I'm at, because at the time that Mom got sick, I was cleaning 5 days a week, 2 and 3 houses a day. And now, in a short time, I had people that ended up going into homes themselves, or they moved away, and so I did lose a few houses, but at the time that's what I needed to be able to take care of her. And I have no regrets on taking care of Mom. I know that that it's my choice to be able to do it, and I will never regret being able to take care of her for as long as I have to. And I know there's other people that you know, you still have to have that self-care, like you were saying. Sometimes you don't get that break. Some people are going to say, well, how do you do that? Because just like me, you don't have that time to be able to spend. That's where, like you said, the information's going to help. So just saying that, you have to have that.
Yeah. And when the time comes, guess what? We're going to get on them bikes and we're going to take off. That's just the way you do it. You don't bitch and moan. I'm sorry, gripe and moan about what you're going through. You don't boo-hoo. You don't wab, poor pity me. You just do it. I'm not saying there's not nights you sit in bed and cry yourself to sleep, or you get up and go in the living room and sleep so you don't wake anybody else up. There's days that basically every little thing, every song you hear on the radio, everything you do is just going to make you tear up and start crying. And it's difficult, but like you said, God gets you through it. And I don't do a whole lot of biblical stuff or spiritual stuff on this podcast or anything else, but you know, I always lean back on there's a scripture that says God will never put on more on you than you can handle.
Sometimes you feel like it, though.
You don't understand it. Trust me.
No.
Many times I thought, boy, if there was ever a scripture in the Bible I do not believe, it's that one.
Right.
But yet, here I am now, all these years later, and it's like, you know what? I did get through it. Yeah. And a lot of times when you go through something, I always say, I'd rather be qualified than qualified. You can be qualified to do something.
Right.
You know, I say it all the time. Out of all the 12 disciples that Jesus had with him, the only one that was qualified to do his job was Judas. Okay? He was the only one that was actually qualified. And the other ones were just called. And I would much rather be qualified. And to me, what I mean by that is, once we go through something in our life, you go through a hard time. We went through a very difficult time after the suicide. Obviously, you evaluate your entire, you know, for us it was the last 25 years. What could I have done different over the last 25 years? But then you get through it. And when you get through it, you get to look back and you see somebody else that's now going through it. And you can say, hey, grab my hand. I'm going to get you through this. You're now qualified to be able to reach back and start helping others to get through it. And that's why I'm a firm believer in that. When you go through a crappy time in your life, once you get through it, you're going to be stronger, and now you can help others get through that same thing. And to me, that's what makes the world go round.
Yep.
That's what I love about living in the Midwest, living in Indiana, where every weekend in riding season there is charity rides, and it's whether it's for cancer research, whether it's for Riley's Children's Hospital, whether it's for an individual that just had a motorcycle accident, whether it's for a young child that doesn't have but 3 months to live. It may be somebody that's getting ready to pass away, and their dream is to be on a nice big ride. Whether it's a child like Dumont, or whether it's a older person like Nancy. Put that ride together, put them on that ride, and let them experience that. To me, that's what it's all about, and that's why I love about being here in Indiana, because I've traveled all over this country with Bubba Blackwell as his announcer, and I'm hollering out to the crowd. And there's many places I talk about charity rides, or hey, what kind of charity rides you do, and they look at you like, what is a charity ride? We don't know what that is. We don't do that kind of stuff, and that happens more times than none. And that's when I realize how blessed we are to be in the Midwest, where everybody still helps one another.
Exactly.
And it's pretty cool.
And before we close,
yes, ma'am,
I do want to go back to the, when you took over the show and you started the show, and that first few months you were alone, didn't have me. I had a hard time because my brother had just passed away and was dealing with that, and so I really wasn't ready. But I will say, through that whole year of you being on there, I remember praying and just asking God for confidence to be able to do it, because I knew that I wasn't able in my own self to be able to get behind a camera and talk to people.
Or in front of the camera.
Or in front of the camera, yeah. Behind it, in front of it, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's what I meant. So I'm a little dyslexic. You'll have to forgive me. But,
I have sex daily. I mean, I'm dyslexic.
Yeah.
Put those words, put all those letters together. I have sex daily. I mean, I'm dyslexic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It is funny. I am dyslexic, though. But anyway, yeah, I didn't have the full confidence sometimes to be able to
go around and keep
talking. I didn't have the confidence in myself because I had been dealing so much with my brother's death that I just did have a hard time, and I just remember praying and believing God that He would give me that confidence to be able to do the job that I knew that Steve wanted us to be together on the show. And so I remember there was a time we were in Indianapolis, and there's a monument down there, and it's in a circle, and it has words all the way around it. I don't know if you remember that. I don't remember what road it's on. It might be on, what's the road that's closed down?
Is it on the circle?
No, it's not on the circle.
Okay.
No, it's a circle monument, but it's not the circle monument.
Okay.
It's a circle, and it has people that are up there. And it's on, what's the road that's closed down?
I don't know.
Anyway, it's a circle. It has a lot of different words on there, and one of them was confidence. And we were downtown
Georgia Street,
and I remember looking over there, and that was the first word that I saw on that, and I knew I think that was my clarity moment of, yes, I can do it. And I really believe that God gave me that. He showed me that confidence, and I felt like that's what God gave me, was confidence. Now, it took me a while to still be able to, when I first started, to be able to talk to people and, feel as comfortable as I do now. I say that, I really wasn't. I felt like I just jump-started and did it, and I don't know. But again, I feel like that God gave me the confidence, and that was, I just wanted to say that because that was the word that stuck out to me on that monument downtown, and I knew at that point that God was giving me the confidence to be able to do what I do and to be able to talk to people, because I'd never been able to talk to people one-on-one. Well, I could talk to them one-on-one, but not in front of a camera.
Not with a microphone in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Having to come up with what you're going to
And
say.
again, I'm dyslexic, so a lot of times I had that hard
Right.
time of, okay, it goes to them, not me. So I am dyslexic, so I did have that issue. But yeah, I felt like that God gave me that, and He just put me out there, and I was able to talk to people, and I feel like that, whatever you call it, but I feel like people feel comfortable talking to me, so I have people that come to me and will talk to me one-on-one and tell me what's going on. So I feel very blessed because of that, because not everybody has that, and I love that people feel comfortable enough to come and tell me whether it's their life story or what they're going
Right.
through, whatever. I think that's awesome that people can do that.
That became kind of an inside joke with all of us,
It did.
right? Especially, you know, like Andy Lang, who All Productions took care of us for 11 seasons.
Right.
And I just remember how me and him would just, you'd say, well, I'm going to use the bathroom before we get started, you know, and you go in there and you come walking back out. And it's like, all right, we need to find out who's, you know, who the ride's for, who's in charge of the ride, so we can get the right information. And you're like, oh, well, so-and-so. Yeah, well, she's not going to be here long. Her mom's in the hospital. She's got to get to the hospital. And we're like, we just got out of the car. How in the world do you know all of this? Oh, well, they came and told me. And that was something that we always laugh. Because, listen, Andy Lang did not have a whole lot of confidence in you being
Right.
able to do it.
I love Andy, though.
Oh, yeah. And Andy loves you. But at the time, it's
Right.
like, dude, I don't think she's going to be able to do this. I just don't think I don't think so. And then we just saw how people gravitate to you. And that's when you talk about the love of God. When you have the love of God in you, that's what you're talking about right there. People felt comfortable with you, and they will share everything with you, and they open up to you, and because you actually listen. Most people, when they're listening to somebody talk, they're not listening to what they're saying. The whole time they're trying to figure out what they're going to say next. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just simply saying you're constantly trying to put together what you're going to say next, and that's just not you. When somebody's talking to you, you give them, you know, I mean, unless it's one of us,
Whatever.
you give them your undivided attention. No, and that's a great thing though. When I talk about you being a badass, you are dyslexic. People. And if people don't understand dyslexia, it's rough, man. It makes it very difficult for you. You say things backwards a lot of times. You're going to say, "Hey, go to the left." You're going to go to the right. You know what I mean? It's just like, and people don't understand that.
Right.
And the fact that you have overcome all that, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, that's why I say you're a badass. If you're not the perfect example of you can do anything you want to do as long as you put the time in and have the confidence and decide I'm going to do it, you can do anything, and
I believe that.
you are living proof that that's the way it is.
Right.
I mean, that's just all there is to it. All right, well, Cindy, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I can't think of anything else I want to say. I will say this. The Camacho Nicaragua cigar, it constantly kept going out. It was very hard to keep lit. It was an okay cigar.
Yeah.
Would I buy another one? Probably not. But I may have to sit down and finish the rest of this, and I will buy one more.
Yeah.
Because I always say that with cigars. Always buy two. Because like this one here, I'm smoking it, we're talking, I'm not paying much attention to the cigar itself. The next time I'll buy another one and I'm going to sit and, you know, now I let this sit in my humidor for several weeks now. And I'm shocked that it just kept going out. That did surprise me a little bit. But I will buy another one, and then when I can just sit back and enjoy the cigar, then I always give them at least two tries. Two tries. Is there anything else you want to share, or anything else?
No, I mean I'm very thankful for the show. I really enjoy it. I love talking to people now. I love hearing their stories. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be able to do this. And
Let me ask you this question. With Steel Horse Thunder, what would you like to do different, or maybe an area you'd like to do more of, or you know what I mean? Because I mean, we do focus a lot on charity rides. We really do. That was the whole purpose of the show starting up 24 years ago, was to show the good things the motorcycle community is doing. I feel like we've done that pretty well.
We have.
We go to rallies. We go to, whether it's the Boogie, the Midwest Boogie, or the Jonesboro River Rally, or
Swap meets.
Swap meets. We do that kind of stuff. And we've done a few like destination rides, whatever. If you said, listen, and I get it, right now time is of the essence and all that. Very hard for us to do any kind of overnighters now. We do a few of those a year and that's about it. But is there something you would like to focus on this year as far as...
You know, I think random stuff. And I know that sounds funny, but I think I mentioned this last year, that we should just, you know, if we're out and about, we should just stop and talk to random bikers that are at a gas station or at a restaurant. Or I think it would be cool to be able to just, you know, whether we're in the car or in the bike, get our phone out and just, you know, talk to them and just, you know, hey, what are you doing for the day? Are you know, out for a ride? Are you going to work? Whatever. But just random talking to people. I think that would be cool to be able to do.
And now that you say that, I remember you. I do remember this now. Uh-oh.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
I think eventually I would love to be able to do more with the women riders, because I don't feel like I get a chance to do as much with the women riders. I know we were up at the boat sport and motor thing.
Boat Sport Travel Show?
Yeah, we were up there and I was talking to the motor maids, and, you know, she was talking about, you know, they all get together and they do all these sorts of things, and I think that's cool. And their husbands can go with them. It's not like they have to go alone.
Right.
But I think it's cool that the ladies get together, and it's like, you know, the guys can go with them, but it's still the ladies group. So
the guys sit at a different table.
Yeah, we can tell them what to do. So
exactly.
I think that would be cool to be able to do a little bit more with some ladies, and you know, I don't know, rides or whatever, do some destination rides or something, I don't know, something that, you know, I love the charity rides, but I know that there's a lot of destinations that would be very cool and be able to tell people about, because not everybody knows where destinations are in Indiana, or further than that, but mostly in Indiana. Right. You know, if you know, right now, money's tight. Money's tight for everybody. So, I mean, even filling up a bike, it still costs a lot of money to fill up a bike. So if you could do you know, even a 2-tank trip, say it's going to cost you $25, so you take $50 and, you know, go as far as you can on 2 tanks of gas and be able to just see what you see. I don't know. And
that's the thing. Like you just said, money is tight.
It is.
You're gonna go out, and if you have a couple meals while you're on the road, along with filling up with gas, and you're going to spend an entire day riding, it's pretty easy to spend $100.
It is.
It really is, just to do that. I mean, I can remember when we could go ride for the weekend.
I remember when I could fill up my bike for like $5 or $10.
I can remember filling up my bikes back in the 70s, you know, and I remember stopping and putting 50 cents in the gas tank. So yeah.
Yeah, that was before my time. But
yeah,
I'm just
that
saying,
was a long time ago.
I could get, how many miles could I get on my Buell? I mean, I had 500 miles to, you know, 2 gallons of gas.
We put Illinois, you were on your Buell, I was on the Road King, and I remember you kept telling me you needed gas, and I kept telling you, I'm looking for gas, and I'm like, hey, I need gas. Right. I need fuel. You got the little 2.5 gallon tank on your, I got 5 gallons on mine, and I need fuel.
Yeah.
I know you need fuel. I can't build a gas station, so we're going to keep riding until we either run out of gas or find a gas station. And I don't remember how many, I thought we had, my God, I thought we put 260, 270 miles, because I was like, I can't have hardly any. There's no way. And
fumes.
Now again, my Road King, it's a 2000, it's an older bike, it's an 88 twin cam. So when I'm riding back roads, like we were, running 45, 50 miles an hour, my bike got pretty good fuel mileage. Where it sucked was when I got on the highway, because it was only a 5-speed, and I got horrible fuel mileage if I was up zipping 80 miles an
Right.
hour down the interstate. But yeah, I remember you put a good 275 or something like that on a 2.5 gallon tank on your blast.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty crazy. Yeah, I would like to do a little bit more of the destination stuff and do more of that kind of stuff. I'm enjoying. Are you enjoying doing the new format that we're doing now, where we are strictly YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? We're doing all social media now. No longer on local television.
Right.
You know, 23 years of local TV, and now we're kind of going on all these different platforms. Now we're doing podcasts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, you know, I hate to say it, but there were so many cable channels that didn't have the show on them that you actually couldn't get them. So most people, most people, there was a lot of people that couldn't watch the show on TV itself. So I think going this route has been awesome. I wish the YouTube channel would get a little bit more, get going a little bit faster.
More traction, yeah.
But Facebook has been great, and I know that, you know, it's just nice. It's fun to be able to do, just like the podcast, being able to talk about the motorcycles and everything, just life in general sometimes. But
well, it's Steel Horse Thunder and beyond. That's what the beyond is.
So it's pretty cool. I personally would like to maybe find a couple of women writer and do a podcast with them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that this is the best way to go for us. I think that it's been great. You know, Cameraman Wes has really done an awesome job helping out with us, and it's been great. I think that it's fun. It was getting to be a chore being on TV because, you know, spending so much money on not having anybody see the show. So this is fun. It's back to being fun and being able to do what we want to do instead of feeling like, you know, well, how are we going to do this?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. And I hope, like I said, you know, on YouTube, I know you can leave comments and all that stuff on wherever this is going to be airing at. You know, if people want to get in touch. But I do know through YouTube, obviously, people can leave comments. And I do. I hope with what you've shared tonight, I love hearing your story about how you became a writer. Because, again, think about this. 24 years ago, there were not many women writers at all. That was a rare thing when you saw a female writer. Now, again, Motor Maids have been around forever.
Yeah, but you still didn't see a lot of women writers. But you just did not. You just didn't see a whole lot of women writers. And let's face it, a lot of your clubs and stuff, a lot of them wouldn't let women ride their own bike. They had to be on the back. Right.
There's still a lot of clubs where women are not members, they're property of. And again, whatever they're, you know, whatever floats your boat, I don't care. I don't judge. I don't give a crap what you do. If you're happy, by all means do it. But it was just one of those things where when you started doing that, there wasn't a whole lot of women riders back then. Yeah. And then, you know, whereas now you look and it's been it was the largest or the fastest growing demographic of motorcyclists were female riders. Yeah. And it is cool. And yeah, I would like to see you be able to do some podcasts with some other lady riders. And it's been a lot of fun. Cindy, thank you so much for opening up and sharing your heart with us and with everybody out there. I hope if there's anybody going through it, any issues that maybe you've touched on, whether it's the Alzheimer's, whether it's, you know, whatever, I hope they get in touch with you. And I hope you can help many people through tough times in life. I mean,
please, anybody who wants to comment and ask me a question about, again, I know it's, when I say 2 years in, it's been a little longer than that with my mom, but it's also, it's been very fast. So if there's anybody that has a comment or wants to ask me a question, please don't hesitate to ask, because if I can find an answer, I'll give it to you.
Right on. All right. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for talking to us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's been a great night.
It has.
This has been fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.